The third thing that I'd like to say at the beginning here would be to acknowledge the resignation of Trustee John France, and that we will continue for the remainder of this term with 4 trustees, and would like to thank Trustee France for his interest in serving UBID. The final thing in a call to order would be to rise and report from our in-camera portion of the meeting we just had, where we confirmed 2 motions. The first motion that we confirmed was to approve a new contract for our contract administrative consultant, Gary Nason, and appoint Gary interim administrator for UBID till the end of June, when conversion to CBRD is anticipated. And as a portion of that motion, it was also, well, as a portion of that decision, really, it was also acknowledged that we thank Janice for her service as acting administrator until the end of December, and that Janice has expressed a desire to return to her role as finance manager for Union Bay in January. So all of that was processed. The other thing that we approved was we had some final discussions around an outstanding FOI request that had some sensitivities around privacy. And I would like to report that we have approved the release of an FOI request with respect to information related to the tendering process for the water treatment plant. And that will be released forthwith. And when it is, it will also be published on our website for public consumption. Just turn it back to the board for a second. Anything I missed that we needed to report on, or does that cover it? Okay, so we'll move into the agenda of the meeting then. So the first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Any questions, thoughts from the board before we move to approve this or adopt it?
Motion to approve.
Second for that.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Ian says yes. Eve says yes.
Yes.
Susanna says yes, and we haven't had Ted join us yet. Okay, second item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our regular board meeting Thursday, November 19th, 2020, which were a part of the package. Any questions, alterations, discussion required of this agenda? Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Eve says yes. Susanna?
Yeah.
Ian, yes. Approved. Okay, next item on the agenda will be to have reports from our acting administrator, our fire chief, and our public works superintendent. So let's go in that order. Forward to acting administrator Swanson.
You guys have the report. Do you want me to read it?
Does the public have the report?
It's not on the website yet, so no, and mine's very short. So it's going to be when we come to the fire department, you're going to regret that decision.
Well, I think if you just were to make sure you cover the highlights of it, you know, the things that are non-standard, and I know that Ian has some things within his that are fairly standard within his report. Right. So I'd ask that each person do those sorts of things.
Okay,
right, so, yeah.
I can just speak about the referendum election. It worked very well, even with the power outage on November 17th. With Danny and the fire department, we brought enough lighting in to be able to keep it going, because if we were to have canceled it, we have to make up the time somewhere else, and then you have to advertise it. So it went very well. And We, through all of the advance and the election day, we did observe all COVID safety protocols and it went well. Peter Crawford was happy with the results, how smoothly it went. Onto COVID restrictions, we've had to make some adjustments with the new restrictions. I'm working out of my home office in Comox. Lindsay's in the office. Public Works are having to make adjustments, and Danny can speak to that. And same with the fire department. But we're all sort of moving towards Zoom meetings, and we do team meetings as well. So onto the budget, Graham and I have been working on the budget, and you'll see that today. So that's, and the RBC water treatment plant loan conversion. The docs came up for signature. I signed off on them. Ian Monroe signed off on them. They've gone back, and they're processing them now. So they'll let us know when the first payment date is. And I just say something about returning to my union position for 3 days a week. Yay. As of January 1. That's my report.
Any questions for our acting administrator on her report? Okay, motion to adopt.
Second.
All in favor? Eve says yes, Ian says yes, Susanna's.
Yes. For some reason, I'm frozen. Do you guys see me?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
just see a black
frozen.
screen, so you're gonna have to.
Yeah.
speak.
No,
What?
I see your picture, but you're
We
not
can
moving.
hear you.
Right, but I'm not moving.
No, you're frozen.
Weird.
Move closer to your Wi-Fi access point.
Oh, no. Anyway, okay, as long as you can hear me, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry, I've lost where we were. My bad.
Approving the minutes.
Right, and there are, sorry, of the administrator's report. Were there any
Right.
further comments or?
No.
Okay, so motion to adopt the report.
We just
All in
voted in
I thought we
favor.
just did
Okay,
that.
okay,
Yeah.
that's what I said. I lost my
Okay,
train of
yeah,
thought when
okay.
we went through that. My apologies.
No problem.
Okay, and I think that was because we couldn't see Susanna's hand go up. Okay, over to Chief Ham for the Union Bay Fire Rescue November report.
Great, thank you. I'll just peruse it because my report is kind of lengthy, so I'll just hit the highlights. Calls have been down for the month of November, which isn't necessarily a bad thing with all the COVID and everything. Our initiatives, of course, the COVID protocols have taken a significant amount of our time, specifically my time in dealing with it. The Office of the Fire Commissioner, the Fire Chiefs Association in the Valley here, and all the other departments. The provincial health minister has updated our response to first responder calls instead of just responding to the echo calls, which are the highest level, the most dangerous, life-threatening calls. They've wanted us to include Charlie and Delta calls as well, to try and take some of the burden off of the ambulance service. The recent changes to the protocols from the provincial health officer makes us change the way we operate in the hall. So now masks are required for everybody in the hall all the time. If we're in the hall, there's a medical checklist on the door when you're coming in. So we do temperature checks and things like that. And we have capacity signs around the hall for different offices, like how many members could be in one spot at a time. The Office of the Fire Commissioner, of course, has legislated that we continue to provide service, obviously, and that we have to continue to train. So we do the best we can by smaller groups in different areas if we have to do something face-to-face, or if we can get the training done on Zoom or the Teams application on the internet. That seems to be working pretty well for us. Of course, our sterilization, PPE, everything's going on in the hall that way. We're still waiting on the mutual aid agreement from 19 Wing. It's held up at their commander level. So it'll happen when it happens. The request for proposal for the replacement of engine 25, the committee hasn't really met yet, but I'm hoping that we can meet in probably around the end of January after the new year. We have some presentations arranged from Hub and Fort Garry and things like that to inform the members of the membership, at least, about new equipment, new bells and whistles and things like that. So we had some kind of milestone stuff happening. We've had promotions to lieutenant this month. It'll be in next month's report, but we've had 2 promotions to captain as well. We've had the deputy complete his fire officer 2 training, which is it's quite significant, and he's also waiting on his 25-year medal. I won't go over any of the fire band stuff because that's kind of mute right now. I spoke to the training, the smaller groups. I finally did manage to arrange a first responder course for the new year. It's taken me just about 5 or 6 months to get that to happen. With COVID, it's really quite tricky to get instructors and get people together in groups right now. Our vehicles are undergoing their CVIs right now, so we'll be able to get the insurance on that fleet. The hydrant adapter kit that Dan recommended we use is in service. And some new equipment has arrived that we've ordered for the engines. Our membership is still 20. We'll be 21 shortly because we're having a member return that used to be on. So we're happy to have that. At the fire hall, we have that new backup generator, but we're having a problem with it right now. We're awaiting parts. That service is under warranty, so we're just waiting for that to get fixed. There's some hall lighting issues we're getting some quotes for that right now. Our occupational health and safety is meeting again, and there are no reports from them, no issues right now. In our public relations portion and events, we did have a couple of members lay wreaths at Remembrance Day in November. And we had one member out in Cumberland to lay a wreath out there. Other than that, we're planning a hamper drive this month. That'll be in next month's report, I guess, but we're gonna try and get something together to drive through the community and do that. And that's pretty much it. Just in closing, I'd just really like to thank Janice for her invaluable support that she's provided me as a fire chief, and being available for consultation pretty much all hours of the day, any day of the week. So I thank her for that. And that's my report.
Thank you, Chief Ham. Any questions from the board or from administration for this report?
Question.
Yes, Eve, please.
Ian, you refer to a committee meeting about the new fire truck. Which committee is that?
That's the committee that was struck with myself, Janice, Ted, and Rick at the direction of the board for the to build the referral or the RFP process.
The new fire committee that we voted on while I was, or is there one prior to that?
It's not the board fire committee. It's just it was struck specifically for the RFP for the engine 25, the replacement.
Okay.
It would be a select committee, Eve, as opposed to the standing committee.
Okay, thanks.
Susanna, any questions?
Nope.
Okay, Motion to adopt the Union Bay Fire and Rescue monthly report.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
yes.
Ian, yes. Okay, next report is the Union Bay Public Works report. Over to Public Works Superintendent McGill.
Thanks, Ian. Good afternoon, everybody. Mine's really quite short, but I would like to start with a couple of just little edits. And I noticed that when I reread it for probably my third time that I had the November treated volume wrong. So we were at 15,402 cubic meters for all of November, which on, I think the report that everyone sees is says something about September and October. So just wanted to set that straight. But I'm pretty sure everybody has the report. Is that correct, Janice? Yeah. So basically, I'll talk a little bit about the water treatment plant shutdown. It went really well. It's the first time it's been shut down, completely drained, cleaned, disinfected, and put back in service all within 10 hours. Obviously, we do this when we have low flows, which we are at now. So that went really well. We do have a problem with our streaming current monitor that has been sent back to Hawk. It is under warranty, and it'll be probably a month before we see that again. In the water distribution system, we had 2 leaks on McLeod, one on McLeod, one on Horn. And then on the weekend, we had a very large emergency repair at the Highwayman Pub. And in one night, it went through 400 cubic meters of water. So it was fixed within 24 hours. Obviously had to bring in a little bit extra help to get that done by Ridgeline. So I'd like to thank them for showing up at in an emergency notice. Langley Lake's doing very well. As you can see in the stats, the turbidity coming in is at 2.09, which has been pretty consistent for the last couple months. Obviously, without the filter plant, we'd be on a boil advisory, so that's great. Kate and I have wrote some exams in Nanaimo. We're still waiting to get our results. All our safety meetings are held monthly. Obviously, with the new COVID stuff that's come up in the last couple of weeks, everybody's wearing masks, and there is only one person in the plant every day. So 5 days a week, we have one person that runs the plant, and basically we're social distanced. And if there is a possibility of, 2 people in the plant, obviously we're wearing masks and disinfecting everything. So basically things are pretty normal for December. But yeah, that pretty much concludes the report.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions for Dan?
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned wearing a mask, and only one person in the plant at a time. Wouldn't you want to be continuing to wear a mask even if there's not a second person, given that it's a water treatment plant? Just asking.
It's an interesting question. What would I'm not sure what the mask would do if there's no one there to breathe on her.
Well, you're breathing on equipment.
Yes, and we do wipe down all railings, all doorknobs.
No.
Persons, our protocols are written. They're
Right.
at the office. So when
I guess what I'm saying is people can be asymptomatic and still spread COVID. So there's nothing to say staff couldn't be.
Yes, yeah. So we wipe down and disinfect every touch point in that plant at the start of every shift.
Okay.
So
Is it,
I understand what you're saying. Yes, I guess the person, it could be possibly a better measure, but the way what we understand is that if you're working in an office and you're working alone, you do not have to have a mask on. We're taking the same approach with the the large treatment plant that we're running.
I interpreted the question to be, and Susanna, you can correct me if this is a part of it or not, but if it isn't, it's my question too then. Is there any risk to transmitting COVID via the water supply?
Absolutely not.
I think it was a question that I was positive that would be the answer, but I thought it was a question worth asking.
It's a good question. Obviously, you've seen our results. I also sent along our report to the Ministry of Health, and we have natural viruses and bacteria in the water to begin with. So when that water leaves that plant, it is in absolute safe drinking standards. So anything that could be added at the plant would be dealt with in the finished water.
Thank you for that
So-
answer. Appreciate it.
I'm sorry, I have an additional response to that. We know that they're testing COVID, for example, in sewage systems. That's one measure actually to see how widespread the infection rate is. So to guarantee that, I don't think we can guarantee that it's a virus. It goes through, it goes from person to person. It's airborne. It's in water droplets. It shows up in sewage treatment. I don't think, I would be cautious as a water superintendent before I say a guarantee there's no COVID virus in our water. I don't know that anybody can guarantee that, is all I'm cautious of.
So we test every week for viruses and bacteria. All our samples have been negative.
And that's through Vancouver Island Health, correct?
Yeah, we don't actually test for viruses. Those tests are extremely expensive.
We test for total and fecal coliforms. Those are the indicators for bacteria and viruses. Yes.
So I guess the thought here would be, are we following best practices and
Right.
and the advice and guidance of Island Health with respect to masks in the water treatment plant?
We are, yes. I have not seen any data at all from COVID being transferred from a water treatment plant to a community.
Okay. Any other questions, Susanna? Any follow-up?
No comment.
Eve, any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Just one maybe curiosity question for me would be that monitor that is down for repairs, warranty repairs.
Yes.
Does it being out of service affect create any risk with respect to the plant?
No, basically what it is, it's a streaming current monitor, and it basically does auto dosing for us. And it's just the motor and the impeller that have burned up. So basically what it's not doing is auto dosing. However, our water is so consistent that we've been running the same dose now for well over 2 months. So none of our parameters have changed, and it's basically, it was an add-on when they put it in, kind of like here's an extra, I don't know how to say it, but an extra tool you could use to help streamline your plant. So basically we're running it the same dosages that we've been running now for, before the rain, basically. So all our dosages are the same.
Okay, and you're confident?
Yes, very confident. The effluent water is still at 0.03 NTU turbidity. Our chlorine hasn't changed much at all. It's gone up a little bit when we did the flushing just to get a good residual flush through the system. That's returning to normal. pH has been exactly the same. If there is any problems with the dosing, we would see either decrease in chlorine or decrease in pH or increase in our effluent turbidity, and none of that's happened.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So are there any further questions? Motion to adopt the Public Works report.
Second,
All in favor? Eve is yes.
Yes.
Susanna's yes. Ian is yes. Okay. Next item on the agenda is under new business, and it's the conversion resolution, and it has three parts. The first portion is to make a motion to with respect to the results of the referendum. So if I can read the motion, have it seconded, and then we can have discussion around it. The motion is, be it resolved that in light of 72% of landowners, and I'm going to change the wording of this. Be it resolved that in light of 72% of ballots cast being in favor of dissolving the Union Bay Improvement District and converting to the Comox Valley Regional District service areas in the referendum poll on November 28, 2020, the UBID Board of Trustees supports the decision of the landowners and is in favor of conversion to CVRD service areas as soon as practicable. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? My only discussion is that once approved, if we approve it, it would need to be communicated to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs via letter, and I would take care of doing that once it was approved. So if there's no further discussion, can we vote on this resolution? All in favor?
Aye.
I don't know where I went, but I disappeared, but I'm here.
Okay, we hear you.
Okay.
And I am in favor. So this motion is passed. The next motion has to do with a follow-on committee to support the conversion efforts. And the motion is that a committee be appointed to work with CVRD during the period leading up to conversion and for a period of 6 months after conversion, pending agreement to its constitution by CVRD. The committee shall consist of the following members: A, Chair of the UBID Board of Trustees; B, Interim Administrator of UBID; C, a second trustee of UBID; and D, one landowner with strong preference for someone who has previously served on the Board of Trustees. Landowners will be invited to express interest in this position, and the board shall appoint one such applicant. So that's the motion. Second.
I'll second that motion.
Welcome, Ted. Thank you for finding your way in.
I had a glitch and finally managed in my feeble way to get it back.
Thank you for coming. Okay, so as I made the motion, I will just give a little bit of background to this in that on the 30th of November, we had a meeting of the remainder of the governance study working committee group. And I say remainder in that the work of Urban Systems, who did the study, was finished and they had dropped off the group. And we started talking about next steps, and this committee was brought up. We spoke about this at our COW meeting last week, and I took away the responsibility to draft a motion for debate. And I recognize that there are several ways we could go about this, and we can talk about those. In doing this, I spoke with our interim administrator, Gary, and he and I crafted this together as an approach moving forward. And I have run it by CVRD, and they seem in the early going here to be supportive of that as an approach. But that said, I will now turn this over to other trustees for comments. So Ted, let's start with you. You haven't had a chance to speak so far.
Well, I agree with the statement that you wrote. It's a case of filling a position, and I think we should go ahead with it. I have no objection at all. This is a transition period, and there'll be a number of things that we need to do during that time. So I'm for this.
Okay. Thank you. Eve?
I'm for it. I just, the question I had was, maybe didn't hear it perfectly, but so the person, is it one person you're taking from the public who you want to have previous board experience, or a person with previous board experience and another general landowner?
The proposal is one person who is who is not on the board, who is a landowner who has previous board experience.
Oh, so just the one person.
Yeah, and so it's one person with a preference towards the board experience.
Okay, thanks.
Susanna?
Okay. I was just trying to move my router. Yes, I'm in favor. I'm not any better. Why isn't my picture showing? Okay, anyway, I'm fine with the motion. I'm in favor.
Okay. Any other conversation, or should we just move to vote? Okay, all in favor? Ted?
I'm in favor, yes.
Eve?
Yes.
Susanna?
Yes.
Ian, yes. Motion number 3. So with the resignation of Trustee France and, the impending end of Trustee Haraldson's term in April, we are faced with the potential for having an election. And that election, if we didn't have it and nothing else changed, would be to leave us with 3 trustees, where 1 being missing would mean we don't have a quorum. So hence I went to the ministry and had a suggestion given to us, and I'll read this motion so that we can have it on the table, seconded it, and talk about it. So in light of the impending conversion to CVRD in July, the resignation of Trustee France, and the current need to hold an election for 1 trustee prior to end of April 2021 at a cost of approximately $6,000, the board accepts the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing proposal to reduce the size of the UBID board to 3 trustees on April 30th, 2021, in order to avoid holding an election.
Second.
Okay, so discussion. I'll start with Eve this time.
Well, I support that.
Susanna?
In the interest of time, I support that as well.
Okay, no further comment there. Ted?
Yes, we're coming to the end where we're going to be switching over, and if we could save $6,000 and run it with 3 trustees, I have no problem.
I forget who brought this up. It was such a good idea that we try not to have an election in April, given that it would really only be for 2 more months. And the savings of $6,000 is important, and we'll see that as we talk about budget. But also saving the public from having to venture out on what might be uncertain COVID times again is at least of the same value. So I'm very much in support of this as well. We end up with only 3 voices at that point in time, but the voices that what they'll need to be cognizant of is stewarding the process properly and ensuring communication is at the best possible level for landowners to understand what's going on. So that's my final comment. Is if anybody else would like to make a comment, again, great. Otherwise, let's move to a vote. Okay. All in favor of this motion? Eve,
Yes.
yes. Susanna?
Yes.
And Ted?
Yes,
Ian, yes. Susanna, your picture is back.
No, it's amazing.
All right, so that motion is complete. So we have done the in-camera portion of the meeting, and now we do go to continuation of new business and the budget. And step one is the final review of public works expenditures and then overall revenues. And so Janice, I'll turn this back to you and to Graham and let you drive through how you want to do this.
So I have made Graham the host so he can share his screen.
Uh-huh.
And I'll unmute myself at the same time. Okay, so I think Janice worked with Dan to sort of finalize some numbers on the wage side of things within the public works. So the amounts that you see here show a reduction from for public works than what was there previously. So the number's gone down, and we again took into account the change in the administration staff with a contracted administrator taking over. So that's reflected in the cost. So these are all the costs for changes to labors that have been reflected in these amounts here. We made some small other little changes. I think we felt that fuel's a little low, so we bumped that up and repairs up. So I think the expenditures we feel pretty comfortable with, unless there's any questions in regards to the expenditures. I just want to talk about expenditures before we jump into the revenue side of things.
Graham?
Yep.
So I'm looking at public works here. I'm presuming the administrative salaries were appropriately adjusted given
Yes.
this new contract and all those sorts of
Yep.
things, right? Yeah.
That's been reflected with these numbers.
And were there any changes made to anything else like on-call costs, those sorts of things?
Yes, we reduced that down to 500 per week. It was previously 600.
And carried on straight through,
Yeah.
through to December, right? Okay.
Yep. So like, for example, when we looked at this at the COW meeting, total wages for public works was 240. So now it's 197. So substantial reductions there.
Because of the maternity leave, and that's it, or?
That was, that and the on-call piece.
Only on call, okay. It's less on call because there's less employees?
No, it's just a recalculation.
Oh, okay. What's the column to the right of this column we're on?
Oh, sorry. I should put that on. So the first column, proposed budget, last year's budget.
So it's 2020 budget. Okay.
Right, thank you.
So if you actually look at total expenditures, the budget for 2021 is actually less than the total expenditures that were in the budget for 2020.
Okay, that's good news.
Even though our biggest cost went up. Nice work. How did that happen? But anyway.
Well, the wages are pretty comparable. But just a completely different staff structure in 2020's budget.
Right.
I'm wondering is this where has it gone down? Because when I look at remuneration, for example, payroll expenses, every line looks like it's equal or higher,
Mhm, mhm.
yet the sum is lower. So do we have a problem?
It's just how I did it. Like, so this is a gross up of total I'm in, and this is a transfer out.
Oh, that's an out, okay.
That's an out, that,
Oh.
and that's being transferred over into fire. Just before, this is a blended number, and this is strictly, yeah. So really, the difference is 151 there, and your min the current year is actually would be just 100 or whatever, right? Those two numbers.
Ah, that's,
So that's the big reduction right there, right?
got it. Just trying to keep us on our toes there, Graham.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We need it.
So that's the expenses. I just want to pull up before we actually go to the rate structure and just sort of look at the revenue side of things. You can see the actual budgeted water tolls for 2020 were 562,000, right? And we've gone through how that budget amount is not going to be a reality, because when we do our projection, we're getting it to be about 452. So it is drastically we're underutilizing our water tolls. So that was the driver why expenses have gone up a bit, because of the new water treatment plant. But the real issue with the budget was that the rate structure did not generate the type of revenue that was built into the budget for 2020.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, so because when we look at the rates, you'll see large increases in the rates, but it's actually pretty close to what was in the budget last year. Just that that rate structure does not generate that level of income.
Oh, it's like 10,000 difference.
Well, yeah, so we're increasing our budgeted revenue by $10,000, but our rates actually have to go up substantially more to generate that $10,000, even though it's only a small increase. Just that the rate structure from 2020 just did not generate that kind of, doesn't generate that 562,000 of revenue. It's going to generate 452,000. So it's a $110,000 shortfall there.
There's one other thing that these parcel taxes that have been uncollected is a fair amount of money, and unfortunately, they still haven't been collected. So what happened there?
So this budget doesn't take any of that into account. It's going
That's
to assume that the district's going to recoup those amounts eventually somehow. You know, you
Right.
can always go to the property sales and stuff like that. So we have not put any allowances for any parcel tax.
Right.
And they're already included in the calculation of the surplus or deficit from last year. They've been counted as revenue.
Yeah.
They just haven't yet been collected.
Okay, I understand that.
Okay, so I'll jump into the actual rate structure that balances this. So actually, I'll just, before we go in here at the bottom, so you can see a surplus of $83,000 from operating, but we have 10,000 in sort of the min section that doesn't have any revenue, so that's covering that off. And then this budget includes a $73,000 transfer to property tax. Transfer to the capital reserves. That $73,000 is calculated to be the difference between the property tax revenue and the loan, less of the loan payments. So that's what's being transferred to the capital reserves.
For clarity, the parcel tax excess over the loan payments. I think you said property tax, and I just want to make sure we're
Oh yeah, sorry, parcel
clear
tax.
for those
yeah.
in the public
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
listening as well.
Okay.
So that's from the perspective of our, and I know we've said this before, first off, I appreciate the work that everybody's done to find ways to reduce these costs. It was really necessary given the, I guess, miscalculation in rates last year, and therefore, causing a greater increase this year than we would normally have liked to have seen. That said, I also feel that, we are, I want to say this right, with the age of our water system, our distribution system, we are taking a risk by contributing a small amount to the reserve fund. Just my opinion. I'd love to see if other trustees have anything to say about that.
We don't have any other pot of money to put into the reserve fund, do we?
Not at present.
Yeah. No, it's extremely concerning how little. So if I understand correctly, the parcel taxes are basically funding the loan, which is around $17,000 a month, correct? So
Right.
that leaves
Yeah.
very little to put into a pot for future infrastructure. And you're absolutely right. Now, I'm hoping that's one of the reasons why conversion was broached, that we would be entitled to grants, infrastructure grants, as well as municipal financing, including the loan that we currently have will be transferred over. But I'm very concerned about a clear need for improving our existing infrastructure, serving the needs of our community, and it's a growing community. However, there's only so much burden that 790, so, but we can't print money.
Question,
Please, Eve.
capital expenditure charges, I might have asked this, you haven't budgeted that we would get anything this coming year, next year?
Correct. And the reason why I did that, because if you receive those monies, you need to move those amounts into that reserve fund for
What
CEC.
funds?
You need to move that into CEC reserves. So it's a money that comes in, but it's not to be offsetting against your operating costs, right? So I'm trying to just get at the operating costs here, because
Right.
what we actually get for you get for those is really beyond your control too, right? Someone applies and are they eligible and all that. So it's something beyond your control as well too. So you put amount in,
They budgeted
like you
last
see
year.
how we have this transfers out here, you need to transfer it out here for those amounts you put in. So I just didn't put one in.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is, indicative of, why we probably need a more in-depth planning exercise as well. And that what we're doing now is a profit and loss, if you will, income statement version of a plan versus a more of a 5-year balance sheet, reserve fund, capital expenditure type plan as well, which we're actually remiss in. We should have one of those. And I think that's probably something that would be worthwhile us preparing prior to conversion, so that we express ourselves as a community as to how we see that going.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ted.
Like regarding the development of Union Bay Estates and the long-going concerns over that, there was a fair amount of money that would have came into the improvement district, but the development has not moved forward. But converting over to the regional district, eventually those permits will be let and that money will move forward, which will help out at a later date. That's just the way that it's going to have to be.
And I
That,
note that when that happens too, that there will be increased demand and increased need for expenditures to create, to double the size of our plant as we
Yeah.
bring more units on board. I think, correct me if
That
I'm wrong, I think our
was-
plant is structured for 100 additional homes, and then we need to move to the next DAF unit after that.
that's correct. And under the water agreement, the Union Bay Estates had to turn around and pay that to be done. That was also in the water agreement, and I imagine that'll be transferred to the regional district.
May I just add to that?
Yes.
The reference that Trustee Harrelson just made was the 2017 Water Infrastructure Agreement references the developer paying for the second DAF. Not, that cost is relatively small. Another issue that needs to be discussed is that the current plant was built knowing that it was going to build out for the existing community, and that there was really only room for a few more homes. But that was all that we could bear in terms of cost. It has also become very clear, although we knew this, our engineers told us this, that the elevation of our current plant is not high enough to reach up higher level properties. And those are contained within Union Bay Estates as well as other areas. So we may well have a future expense of not only a second DAF, like the unit, but also a need for a plant at a higher location, which would include room for settling ponds, as well as the washroom and storage that was missing in our current plant. So the long and the short of it is we have much more infrastructure to pay for. And
Mr. Chair,
CECs are not going to cover it.
I feel like we're drifting off our topic here of
Yeah.
working on the 2021 budget. And I also, don't want to drift into discussions that aren't supported by documentation right now. And if we do need to have this discussion going forward. But I'd like it to be supported and everybody prepared with all of the facts, like a copy of the water infrastructure agreement and those sorts of things, so we can really see what happens next.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
and add a small amount to that and just carry on with this meeting is DAF plants run $500,000. That's not a small item. And also those agreements also included another water tower on the same location that is already been prepared for that in the future. It's as far as other plants and all the rest of it, that's down in the future as development goes ahead within the Union Bay area. So it's really a non-issue at this time.
Yeah. So we've got other items coming up on this agenda, such as a referral for a new development not part of Union Bay Estates. And some of this we'll bring our Public Works Superintendent in to comment on. But I'd like us not to speculate on what might need to be built depending on what gets built where until we have the reports. And speculate, I'm sorry, that's not I don't mean that, Susanna, as just saying that you're speculating.
No, I'm not speculating.
Yeah. Okay, so can we move to rates? Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, just one question, Ian, about CECs. I don't know if you've done a review last year or this last year, 2020, on the CEC rate and whether it is going to be reviewed and raised.
I think when we spoke about this at our CAL meeting, we said, let's defer that until the January meeting. That and B properties and whether we continue to tax B parcels at the same zero rate as we have, given that there's a greater value generated now by having this water plant.
Okay, thanks.
So to make the budget balance, these are the rates that we've used. So the base rate goes up to 108 per 2-month period. So that's a 20% increase. Then all the sort of the excess rates, they've been kind of tried to do sort of around 25%, you know, keeping round numbers in place there. So you can see that the different rates, so excess level 1 would go to 140, excess 2 to 190, excess 3 to 250, and everything above would be 375, and commercial would be 160 per cubic meter. So those are quite substantial rate increases. I understand that, and I think the board understands that. And I said, like, the issue is this, the rate structure from last year are substantially short in the amount of money that they need to generate for the improvement district.
Is that because usage was not what they budgeted for, or simply because they didn't raise them high enough?
I really can't comment on how that was the thought process that was behind that. Just when you review the math, it just doesn't work. So, so like when we went through that or when we had the Cal meeting, when we went through actual 2020 usage, only is 110,000 less than what the budget revenue would be for water rates.
Wow.
My interpretation of that was that it was simplistically budgeted, that the budget specified an average revenue of $135 every 2 months per property. And then we set the base toll at 90, which would then mean that we were expecting $45 in excess use from every property every 2 months. And so we budgeted for way higher usage than we actually got.
Okay, thanks. Right.
And this method is now basing our budgeting off actual usage. And if the pattern of usage, and of course we're at, you know, there's variables in this we're not in control of, like weather, and how do people react to higher rates and water conservation. All those things are variables we're not in control of, but at least this budget is built in a more detailed fashion using historical consumption rates.
And we used 95% of 2019 actual usage. And the reason for that was, well, we don't have a full year of 2020. And it actually looked like 2020 usage is actually less than 2019. So that's why we use that 95% usage to come up as an estimate.
Mm-hmm.
So any further questions? These are the rates that are proposed, which essentially it's a 20% increase in base rate, and approximately that it looks like in some of the lower excess ranges. It went from 111, like excess 1 in 2020 was 111 per cubic meter, excess 2.
These are all the increase, the actual percentage increases right here.
Thank you.
So yeah, we try to make them equal across, just to keep the same sort of structure.
Mm-hmm. So this under units, actual 95% of 2019, 690 is the amount of houses? Or
yeah, so that number is not 95%, that's the actual number of units now. So that's the base rate.
What's the numbers under that? 26,945.
So this is actual, it's a 95% of the cubic meters that were consumed
in excess 1 category.
Yeah.
So how can excess 4 category be more than excess 2 and excess 3?
Because excess 4 is anything above 3. Once you get to 3, then it goes on for infinitely kind of idea, where each of the other excess are a range, the smaller range. So you don't have that range effect for 3, or for I'm calling it 4.
I see, okay.
So like for excess 1, it's 21 meters to 50 meters, and it's 50 meters to 75, 70 to 100, then everything above 100.
Oh, gotcha, sorry.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Don't fill your swimming pool.
So the one area of rates that isn't addressed here, and I don't know how, maybe Janice can answer this, is how many properties do we have that are non-metered? Is it significant?
Yep. And don't forget, we also have some homes that their water's turned off. So they do not get charged. You know, they don't live in it, it's empty. So there's a bunch of variables as to why not everybody gets charged.
So that 690 is not taking that into consideration?
That's an actual.
So so we have above that aren't hooked up.
Or yeah, they're turned off, or yeah.
Okay.
So the reason I asked that question is that, you know, we haven't contemplated the rates that we would set for non-metered properties. And last year, the non-metered single-family residential property paid simply the flat rate, the $90, which means that any excess usage they got for free. And, you know, for commercial properties, it was I believe it was slightly different. Yeah, commercial properties paid a $90 base rate when metered and $140 when not metered. So I'm just wondering if we need to discuss those as well.
We certainly do. I didn't realize anybody was receiving water and not being metered.
Me neither.
Yeah.
So
Explain
that's
that
not
again. Can you explain that again?
Who are you speaking to, Janice?
You, sorry.
So our bylaw last year set rates for non-metered rates. The following tolls are hereby fixed and made payable by all owners of property in the district which do not have a water meter. And the for each single family residential property, a bi-monthly toll of $90, which is the same as the base rate for a metered property. That doesn't seem fair.
no.
Annie, is that correct, that we have non-metered water users?
Incorrect.
Yeah, I thought so too.
So there are none?
Every house that has a water meter.
Correct.
And how about commercial
Yeah.
properties?
Every single place that has a water service has a water meter.
And they may have turned it off because they're away or the house is empty. But they're not getting water unless they're paying.
That's correct.
So we set rates last year for a non-existent circumstance. Is that kind of what we're saying? And should we anticipate that we would ever have a connection that didn't have a meter?
No.
No.
So do we need to, in our new bylaw, do we need to remove that section?
Yes.
I don't see where that is, so sorry.
It's section 8 of your
I see it, thank you.
suggested bylaw 282.
Yeah, that is not the way it is.
Well, I'm a bit confused because when Ian first asked the question about these particular properties, you said there were lots, Janice.
No, there's lots that are not connected to the system, but they're not getting water.
Okay.
And so the lots that are not connected to the system are not included in the 690.
Correct.
We have 690 paying properties now.
Yeah.
Okay. So we do not need to discuss non-metered rates. We only need to discuss these metered rates as presented. And I'd like to know if there's any further discussion on this or whether we should be voting to approve the budget as presented.
I second the motion to approve the budget as presented.
And would anybody have any further comments on this before we vote on it?
I would just like to say, for the benefit of Ted, who was not at our very, very long cow meeting, that this budget is a vast improvement over the initial one that we were looking at so desperate and feeling very discouraged about. So Ted, that's for your benefit. Just these numbers are much better than the first set.
Well, I knew there was going to be an increase. You're saying up to 30%, which is pretty high. If it's going to be 20%, I can understand it with a water treatment plant and with that changeover. The only way that we can generate revenue basically is by increasing our water tolls. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so Eve, any further comment on this?
No, thanks.
Susanna?
No, thank you.
All in favor of approving this budget as presented?
Yes.
Yes.
Susanna? Yes. Ted?
Yes.
Yes.
Ian, yes. Okay, again to Graham and Janice and Dan and Ian Ham, everybody that contributed to this process, thank you for your good work on it. And thank you for your tolerance of us coming back to you continuously to try to find ways to drive these rates down. And you've done a remarkable job. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So the next item, and bear with me on this, is I'm going to have to do this on the fly. We're having a reading of the bylaws, which means we'll need first and second readings. First reading is just to propose not to debate it, vote on it as a first reading, and then there'll be a second reading that will happen, which will be for us then to debate and make changes and approve if necessary. For the first reading of the bylaw amending bylaw 282, amending bylaw 281, water tolls and other charges 2021, a bylaw to amend bylaw 281 being the water tolls and other charges 2020. The trustees of Union Bay Improvement District enact as follows. That the Improvement District's bylaw number 282 passed by the trustees on the 10th day. Sorry, that should read that bylaw 281. Nope, sorry, 282. Passed by the trustees on the 10th day of December 2020 is hereby amended by, there's something wrong there, but I'll come along with it. Amended by revising section 6, 8, and 9, and to add section 22 below. So metered rates, section 6, the following tolls are hereby fixed and made payable by all owners of residential and commercial property as applicable in the district which has a water meter at the commencement of a billing period. Residential rates, the base rate, including up to 20 cubic meters of water, $108 bi-monthly. Excess rate number 1, which is for consumption 21 cubic meters to 50 cubic meters, $1.40 per cubic meter. Excess rate 2, which is for consumption 51 cubic meters to 75 cubic meters, a total of $1.90 per cubic meter. Excess rate 3, which is for consumption 76 cubic meters to 100 cubic meters, $2.50 per cubic meter. Excess rate over 3, 101 cubic meters or greater, $3.75 per cubic meter. Commercial rates, a base rate of $108. Water usage rate, water usage rate $1.60 per cubic meter. There is no base amount included in the base rate there, or no base consumption. Time of payment, section 9, billing occurs bi-monthly with all tolls and charges due and payable within 15 business days of the billing date or on the due date stated on the water toll invoice for the period which the tolls and charges were levied. Section 22, this bylaw will take effect January 1, 2021. Item 2, this bylaw may be cited as the bylaw number 282, amending bylaw number 281, water tolls and other charges 2020. So first reading of that bylaw, motion to accept, seconding of the reading of the bylaw. We need a
Second.
seconder, yeah. And there's no debate now, so all in favor of that first reading?
Favor.
Yes.
Yes. Ted?
Yes,
Okay. So we move on to second reading where we can have debate and restructure, do all the things we need to do. Bylaw number 282, amending bylaw number 281, water tolls and other charges 2021. A bylaw to amend bylaw number 281 being the water tolls and other charges 2020. The trustees of the Union Bay Improvement District enact as follows: that the Improvement District's bylaw number 282 passed by the trustees on the 10th day of December 2020 is hereby amended by revising sections 6, 8, and 9 to add section 22 below. Metered rates, section 6. The following tolls are hereby fixed and made payable by all owners of residential and commercial property as applicable in the district, which has a water meter, and at the commencement of a billing period, residential rates, base rate up, including up to 20 cubic meters of consumption, $108 bi-monthly. Excess rate number 1 for consumption between 21 cubic meters and 50 cubic meters, $1.40 per cubic meter. Excess rate number 2 for consumption between 51 cubic meters and 75 cubic meters, $1.90 per cubic meter. Excess rate number 3 for consumption 76 cubic meters to 100 cubic meters, $2.50 per cubic meter. Excess rate over excess rate 3, 100 cubic meters and above, $3.75 per cubic meter. Commercial rates, the base rate with including zero consumption, $108 bi-monthly. Water usage rate for all consumption, $1.60 per cubic meter. Non-metered rates, in section 8, the following tolls are hereby fixed and made payable by all owners of property in the district who do not have a water meter. These tolls have not been, these tolls are blank in here, but it says for each single family residential property, nil. For the Union Bay Beautification Boulevard, nil. For each commercial property, there's nothing stated. For the Union Bay Improvement District, nil. Time of payment, billing occurs bi-monthly with all tolls and charges due and payable within 15 business days of the billing date or on the due date stated on the water toll invoice for the period for which the tolls and charges were levied. 22, this bylaw will take effect January 1st, 2021. This bylaw may be cited as the bylaw number 282, amending bylaw number 281, water tolls and other charges 2020. So need a seconder for that reading of the bylaw.
Second.
Okay, so discussion, changes,
Wanted to
all
make
those
a
sorts of
point.
things. What's that?
Should it not say water tolls and other charges 2021?
Under where, sorry?
Section 2 on page 2. This bylaw may be cited as bylaw number 282, amending.
81.
Oh, no, maybe
Wait.
that's correct. But shouldn't it say another charges 20?
No, it should say 2021.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. I can change it.
I have changed it here for in case we need another reading of this. The other thing that I wonder about is this should read, that says that the, in section 1 above, that the improvement district's bylaw number 281 passed by the trustees on what day of 2019? Because it's what's,
Got that.
17th of October, 2019.
December 19th. Yep.
is that what it was?
Yep. 2019.
Okay. And then the other piece that seems to need to change is that in section 8 on non-metered rates, we would need to remove lines A for each single family residential property, because there will not be non-metered single family residential properties, and remove line C
Okay.
for each commercial property.
Okay.
Anybody else see anything that needs to change, anything that needs to be discussed?
Regarding these raw lots that don't have water, etc. I guess when the time comes that they are built on, then the CECs will be collected, as well as meter, etc. Until then, are they just paying the frontage tax and that's it? Those properties?
So the answer is that lots that have not paid their CEC are not paying parcel taxes either. So we can talk about that when we talk about the parcel taxes bylaw. And then we've also talked about that in our cow meeting, that we would like to revisit the way we calculate, the way we calculate parcel taxes for those that have not yet paid their CEC.
And I was thinking that there should be a parcel tax regarding those properties. There's a line running across, even though they're not connected.
So let's deal with that under the parcel taxes bylaw, which is next.
Okay.
Any other comments from anybody? Would you like me to read it with these changes, or do we understand the changes that were made really to section 1 to change the date on the bylaw when last year's bylaw was being cited? We've removed the references to non-metered single family and commercial properties, and we've changed the citation in section 2 to be 2021 instead of 2020.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's good.
Good.
Gary, would you advise me read it again, or do you think we're good? We're good?
I think we're good, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so all in favor of this bylaw?
Yay.
Eve, yay. Susanna?
Yes.
Yes. Ted?
Yes.
Ian? Yes. Okay. So now, oh, I need to move on. That's last year's. I can move that one out of the way. Okay, so the next bylaw that we need to talk about is with respect to parcel taxes. And so this is bylaw number 285, taxation bylaw 2021. A bylaw for so reading number 1, to introduce the bylaw, a bylaw for imposing taxes upon lands in the district and to provide for imposing a percentage addition to encourage prompt payment thereof. The trustees of the Union Bay Improvement District enact as follows. 1, for the year 2021, there is hereby levied the following taxes. Janice, can I have the number, please? 390, right?
Correct.
Is that what we're still saying? Okay.
Yeah.
So for the year 2021, there's hereby levied the following taxes. A parcel tax, or a tax of $390 on all parcels of land classified into Group A. And B, a tax of $0 on all parcels of land classified into Group B. 2, the first installment of $195
Correct.
shall be due and payable on or before the second day of March 2021. The second installment of $195 shall be due and payable on the 31st day of August 2021. A percentage addition of 10% or 10% of the amount thereof shall be added to all taxes remaining unpaid after the said dates. 3, in addition, taxes remaining unpaid on the first day of March next following the date upon which taxes are levied shall bear interest at the rate prescribed by the Lieutenant Governor in council under the Taxation (Rural Area) Act as set out under section 717 of the Local Government Act. 4, this bylaw may be cited as the Taxation Bylaw 2021. So that's first reading, motion to accept that reading, or sorry, second that.
Second.
Second.
All in favor of this bylaw, first reading?
In favor.
In favor.
Susanna? In favor? So note that all trustees were in favor. So we'll move on to second reading, which will then followed by discussion and debate. So bylaw number 285, taxation bylaw 2021, a bylaw for imposing taxes upon the lands in the district and to provide for imposing a percentage addition to encourage prompt payment thereof. The trustees of the Union Bay Improvement District enact as follows. Number 1, for the year 2021, there is hereby levied the following taxes. A tax of $390 on all parcels of land classified into Group A. B, a tax of $0 on all parcels of land classified into Group B. 2, the first installment of $195 shall be due and payable on or before the second day of March 2021. The second installment of $195 shall be due and payable on the 31st day of August 2021. A percentage addition of 10% of the amount thereof shall be added to all taxes remaining unpaid after the said dates. In addition, taxes remaining unpaid on the first day of March next following the date upon which taxes are levied shall bear interest at the rate prescribed by the Lieutenant Governor in Council under the Taxation (Rural Property) Act as set out under section 717 of the Local Government Act. For this bylaw may be cited as the Taxation Bylaw 2021. So the bylaw has been read, second of that second reading. Would second that.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion. Ted, anything to add?
No, I have nothing to add to that.
Eve?
So parcel B am I mistaken? We can't relook at that, or we're going to do that next year, or were we not discussing? Well, first of all, did we find out how many B parcels we have and whether we were able to? You found out that we were able to levy parcel taxes on these lots?
So yeah, that's good information for me to add. We have the ability to charge parcel taxes on any Group B lot which has a water main fronting the lot, or that where we have concrete plans to install a water main which would affront that lot. And in the past, Union Bay Improvement District has not charged parcel taxes to lands that did not pay their CEC or had not yet paid their CEC, so they're just raw land. Given that we now have a water treatment plant that is substantial in providing excellent water, and that water quality may in fact improve the value of properties, it may be prudent for us to look at whether we should be charging parcel taxes for any lots that meet the conditions to be charged a parcel tax. in working with our administration, we've discussed, whether it would be appropriate just to do that right now, or whether it would be more appropriate for us to seek legal guidance, properly form this out, and look to perhaps change the parcel or change the way we charge parcel taxes at a future time. And I might draw on Gary here to advise or provide some additional information on how we might approach adding parcel taxes to Group B lands. And then we could discuss, would we use that to reduce, if we did such a thing, we'd need to know how many properties we could add it to. And that would take some work on the part of our public works superintendents to determine which lands qualify. And then we would decide whether we would reduce taxes with that, or whether we would use those additional taxes to create greater capital reserves. So Gary, I know maybe you could provide a little bit more background on this.
Mr. Chairman, I certainly do concur. I think this is a project that's worth pursuing, notwithstanding the conversion process. I think we need to look at this. My understanding is that if a line fronts a particular parcel and that parcel is capable of being connected, that parcel is ordinarily subject to charging. So I think it's definitely worthwhile you looking at that. I don't think it's something that should be deferred. I think the steps would be, there's got to be some field work to confirm the potentially eligible parcels. Step 2, I think, would be to get some legal confirmation that yes, in fact, you can do that. Again, I'm pretty convinced you can. Been down that before. And then as part of that legal confirmation, putting a strategy in place to, because you're going to get some pushback for sure, put a strategy in place to be transparent, advise the public that this is what's being proposed, set an implementation date, and then a strategy of what those steps would be, and have that confirmed and very transparent going into it, so that there's no surprises. You have to, at the end of the day, basically take action to enforce compliance. So I would recommend that this is something we should look at early in the year and start working towards a strategy of bringing those parcels on board, and not necessarily wait until conversion, post-conversion.
I would agree with Gary's suggestion. I'm just a little confused. It seems like we have to make a decision about the parcel taxes for 2021 today. So we work on this, and yes, everything is confirmed. We can actually add parcel taxes to Lot B. Does that now wait until, that's where I'm confused. Is that collection of those taxes will now wait until 2022?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily saying that. I think that there's an accounting piece, there's a financial piece, but there's also an implementation piece. I think that definitely it's something that's worth pursuing, but I'm not necessarily saying that you would start the wheels in motion and defer any implementation until 2022. Ordinarily, that's what you'd probably do. You'd start the process early in the year and then work up towards implementing it the fire. But I'm not necessarily sure that this has to be that complex. And it's something that I think we should be looking at with a view to implementing as soon as possible and as soon as legally permissible.
Yeah, I would agree with.
My question would be, how would we phrase this bylaw in order to allow us the flexibility, or would we indeed just come back and amend this bylaw when we've done the work?
Yeah, I think what you'd do is you'd be coming back, you'd be amending the bylaw or introducing an entirely new bylaw scheme. Rather than, I don't think there's anything you can do in this bylaw. I think the most important piece is to do your homework, outline the strategy and the steps, be transparent, go public, put the notice out there that we're going to be doing this effective whatever day or whatever month or whatever year. And then bring in the necessary legislation and bylaw changes or amendments or a new bylaw at that time.
I think it would, pardon me, Mr. Chair, I think it would have to be a new bylaw for B lots that are currently not being built on, but have a water line running across the frontage. I think it'd have to be a new bylaw altogether.
Eve, any comments?
Oh, well, no, just my concern is, well, I mean, that how much work would that take the Public Works superintendent to do? But I guess that's a question for when this project gets going.
And really what I have to do, it's 116 properties. I have to get the address out of the billing program for all those properties to give to Danny so he can look them up on his map.
Okay.
That is work that probably should be done anyway, just in terms of inventory. But yeah, for sure, there's work involved.
Mhm.
The first thing I'd like to do is take a look at the system map. Take a look at the parcel. It may not be as complex as you may think in terms of confirming which parcels are eligible and should be taxation and which are clearly not. So the first thing I'd like to do is just take a look at that system map and the parcels that we're talking about.
Okay.
I'd be curious what Danny thought in
Mhm.
terms of parcels that could be charged.
We would have to, like you say, I don't know which ones they are
Yeah.
till I know. I could probably do 90% of the work off a map.
Hmm.
Or even maybe 100% of the work off a map.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that may, I think that may be possible.
Okay.
I think we're all in agreement with the need to look into it. So is there a motion that needs to happen? What?
It's already on my list. Don't look into it early in the year.
Okay.
Okay, so any other discussion of this? Is there any other changes that are noted or anything that we need to do with respect to this, or shall we just move to vote on this?
Let's move to vote.
Everybody in agreement? All in favor of this, the bylaw as presented in the second read, bylaw number 285 as presented in the second reading?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, so we are now on to our second last item, which is development referrals reports. The background of this is that we have received 2 referrals from the Ministry of Transport with respect to some developments in Union Bay Estates. And we've received a second rezoning application from the CBRD for a new development called Upper Island Developments. And so I'm going to turn this over to Gary Nason. He's prepared a report for us with respect to these items, and we can hear from Gary and then ask questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be fairly brief because I did, prepare a report, and I'm not going to go through it line by line, but I noticed there are some members of the public who are listening in at the meeting. So I just want to summarize where we're at with this and how we came to this point. Janice asked me a couple of months ago, I think, to provide a little bit of advice on 3 referrals, fairly significant land use development referrals that had been referred to UBID. And I wasn't sure of what the past practice has been with respect to bringing these types of referrals to the board's attention, but I thought it was really important that they be put in front of you, that you be brought up to speed, given a bit of background, just shown the magnitude of these referrals, and given the opportunity to comment back to agencies. In essence, there's 3 of them. 2 are from Union Bay Estates, and the referral was, I would think, received in June of this year. The third referral is a rezoning application submitted by Upper Island Developments to the Comox Valley Regional District. And although we're beyond the initially requested 30 or 45-day deadline for comments, I've spoken to both the ministry and to the regional district, and they're prepared and welcoming any comments that the board would like to submit. I'll just briefly overview the 3 of them, and then you might want to deal with Union Bay Estates separately from the other one. The first referral from Union Bay Estates, and actually it's 2 of them, but they're companion referrals. One is a proposed plan of subdivision. So this is further down the process than a rezoning. It's a subdivision plan for the creation of 5 fee simple lots. And the material is in Appendix A, and I've numbered and circled the pages for ease of reference. The first referral, as I say, is for a proposed plan of subdivision for the creation of 5 fee simple lots, multi-residential and single family detached residential, but there's not a lot of detail on the type of development that's proposed for each lot. And the applications don't appear to include any sort of, substantive design details with respect to the water system. And that's the most significant implication for UBID, is on the water system. The second companion referral, again by Union Bay Estates, is to create 38 strata lots within one of the proposed Bearland strata lots. Again, the type of development is not, it hasn't been provided. There's not a huge amount of detail there. But again, the most important comment is that certainly there would be potentially substantive implications on the district's distribution and supply system. I asked for comments from our engineering consultant, Ken Dahl. He's provided those comments. And my report. And I also asked for comments from your fire chief and for your public works superintendent. The chief has submitted some written comments, actually 3 referrals, and those are on page 16. And again, I think it's really important that you take a look at those comments, invite any comments right now from the fire chief and from the public works superintendent. I think Mr. Dahl, from a technical perspective, has really outlined a huge pile of questions and made some preliminary comments. And again, there are potentially substantive implications for UBID, particularly on the water side of things. The Upper Island developments, I'll just overview that really
Gary,
briefly as well. Yeah.
Do you think it would be worthwhile pausing there and dealing with Union Bay Estates first, or would you like to go through everything?
No, however you want to do it, we can pause. And if you'd refer to those comments and questions of the engineering consultant. But this is also the opportunity, as I say, to entertain any comments from the public works superintendent, the fire chief, and from the board as well. So that these can be compiled and sent back to, in the case of these two referrals, to the Ministry of Transportation, because that's the agency that forwarded them. So I'll stop there, Mr. Chairman, and we can talk about any comments you may have or the staff may have on the Union Bay Estates 2 subdivision applications.
I would like to hear from our public works superintendent and our fire chief of their main concerns or recommendations, so that we can be clear and ensure that those are included in the report.
I think I'm on mute. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, good. So yeah, I did talk with Gary. And my point of view at this point is, until we get some really good understanding of what they're going to require, it's there's major upgrades that would have to happen to the system to do these proposed subdivisions, especially the Upper Island development. I think the Union Bay Estates one is really quite straightforward. I don't have much problems with that one at all. But the Upper Island development one would require substantial upgrades. There's no question about it.
Okay, let's hold that one until we get to it. But basically on the Union Bay Estate ones, you don't have technical concerns with those?
Not at all. No, it's quite straightforward.
Chief Ham?
From the fire side on the, they were pretty basic. It was just, fire hydrant spacing, road widths, no dead ends, pretty typical stuff, anything. So we have no concerns.
Thank you. Trustees, any comments on these?
I've got some questions, Ian.
Then you shall ask them.
Thank you. So just we're doing the Union Bay Estates. So the first one is for 5 fee simple lots and the second one is for 38 strata lots. So am I right here? So that's 43 hookups to water. Is that what that means?
Yes, it's around that number, I believe so, yes.
So that's what he's asking for, 43 water hookups.
That's correct.
So we can provide that with our current water treatment plant.
That's correct.
One of the things that the engineering consultant is recommending, and Dan could probably speak to this, I know he can better than me, is that he's recommending that UBID review the water usage data from this past summer to update our current water consumption as part of this review process, if it gets to that.
Okay, and then this property, Ian, is all serviceable in it's in the area that is legally or insurable to cover with our fire department?
Oh, sorry, was that for me?
That was
Yep.
for other Ian.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
So your question again, sorry?
Sorry, it was, so this property that these lots, they're in our fire service area, no problem. They're not too high for the pressure and so forth.
As far as I know from the water side, that it's okay. I haven't been told anything other than that it's functional.
You know where these lands are that they're going to develop?
Yeah, I've seen them on the map, yeah.
Okay,
For reference, the 5 fee simple lots are on the south side of the Island Highway, in other words, the inland side of the Island Highway, north of Washer Creek.
Okay,
And the 38 Bearland Strata lots are on the north side, AKA Coal Hills side of the lot, of the highway.
so we'd have to put in all the infrastructure to all the water, the pipes to get the water to these lots. There are no pipes to get water to these lots now, right?
That's correct.
And CECs would supposedly cover the cost of building those? They should? Or they would?
I think the question is, how would the costs of constructing the plumbing infrastructure be paid for?
The developer will pay for all the pipe and material.
Leading to the lots too?
That's correct.
That's in their agreement or whatever? I thought Union Bay had to provide the infrastructure getting to the lots.
No,
No, not at all.
May I ask a
That,
question?
I think the last time. Certainly.
Go for it, Susanna.
Well, I'm confused in that I don't know where it says the developer will be paying for all the pipes leading to his property.
Me neither. That's a new one on me.
It's in our subdevelopment bylaw, I'm pretty sure, if you look that one up.
So doesn't he have to pay CECs, and what are those for? If he's
CECs will be paid when the house is put online and they're using the system.
The CECs are paid for by the individual property owner, the end property owner. And in my mind, CECs represent your share of the existing infrastructure, like the water treatment plant and the dam and the big pipeline to bring it down, and the distribution system that is already in place.
Yeah, my recollection from the conversion study is that those CECs were last reviewed in 2014. And you typically recommend that they be reviewed every 5-6 years. So it's probably timely to review those to make sure that they're, totally reflective of the of costs that should be charged. But I agree with Dan in terms of the onus is on the developer to pay these types of hookup and infrastructure and extension charges.
okay. So
Could I?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Suzanne. Sorry.
I would like to hear from our water superintendent. The engineer listed some very specific concerns. And I don't have his letter right in front of me, but it related to the lack of detail, for example, around these strata lots and 38 strata lots, and the possibility that we would be inheriting a system that the strata lots, like there were, I'm not sure if we've had enough time to digest the recommendations made by our engineer, which has a lot of cautions that I have real concerns with.
What I've seen is a couple of comments from there that, and they're in Gary's report, right, is that there hasn't been a plan of the water system submitted, right? And that's required by our subdivision bylaw, that they would submit a plan that says how would the water system be laid out. So, that certainly has to be a part of our commentary that says you owe us that. We have to see it so that we can approve it. The second piece that was of interest to me is that the engineer said that the way that the Bearland strata had been laid out, that it said that there would be easements and right-of-ways granted for the installation of utilities. And that by inference that it implied that we would then end up owning and maintaining that infrastructure. And so that, to me, has to be sorted out and agreed to in some form, that we are clear and definitive on who will own and maintain that infrastructure. And there's a piece of it that we also need to go back to on our CECs, is that there is a different rate, CEC rate, that I wasn't really aware of until I went and reviewed it, for strata lots.
Mhm.
And that, as I recall that number, it's in the range of $7,500. And that a fee simple lot would attract a rate of $8,900. So to me, and I'm speculating in this or assuming, is that, you know, a reason that you would have a lower CEC is because the strata corporation takes responsibility for that infrastructure. But I don't know that for sure. It's just, to me, it seems funny that you would have a lower rate and no additional responsibilities.
I agree. I also would like more clarity around what does the strata, what comes to my mind when I speak about this, when the strata lot is mentioned, is that development that is near Qualicum, which is a bunch of houses stuck together, and they're not year-round residents. They are vacation homes essentially. And I'm really concerned that this is, I'm not sure, is this that? And that's a whole different ball game that I'm not entirely comfortable with. So that's where I'm coming from. There is not enough information in these two proposals to really, for us to make an educated decision. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment. I mean, basically what Mr. Dahl is saying here in his letters is that there's not been a lot of information that's been provided, and he would certainly be recommending that further specifics be provided by the applicant, you know, location and number of service connections, design demands, required fire flow demands, minimum and maximum water pressure requirements, and design drawings, so that we could then, you know, do a more detailed comprehensive assessment. The feeling may be now at this point in time that this proposed development would be within the capacity parameters of the current water supply and distribution system. But having said that, a lot more detail should be provided by the applicant so we could do a more thorough, detailed review. So I think it's just important that these comments be put out there now before this application, you know, gets further down into the system, because it is a subdivision application at this point in time, and the approval authority is the ministry. So they'd be looking for comments back in terms of any further information that we think should be required of the applicant.
Thank you.
So how do we incorporate that comment from the engineer that says that we would like to further understand ownership of infrastructure for the strata?
Mr. Chairman, typically what happens is, you know, subject to the board's approval, we'd write a letter back to the ministry with a copy to the applicant, attaching a copy of this report and attaching a copy of our engineering consultant's letter so that they clearly know the information that's being requested.
Fantastic. It's more than just this report. All the attachments go as well.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments on this particular component from anybody before?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I think basically the answer is we need more information regarding the design of the water system for this new subdivision, et cetera, and then a decision can be made by the board. We just don't have enough right now. That's all I can really say about it.
Okay, thank you. Susanna or Eve, anything further here?
I would like to add that, you know, with our subdivision water regulation bylaw, things are built according to the MMCD highest standards. All of those would be followed. That's what the Union Bay follows. So depending on what they need and how much they need it, then it would be, all of those regulations would be followed and be built to the highest standards.
I guess we need to hear that from Union Bay. Estates, the developer making the proposal.
They don't have a choice. They have to do it to our specifications and we follow the highest.
Our bylaw requires that.
That's correct, yes.
So to summarize, what they have submitted does not fit our bylaw.
What they've submitted doesn't tell us everything we need to know.
That's right.
But what they're gonna build if we let them go through and go ahead is a water system, you know, an extension of the water system that is gonna be built to the higher standards. And that's what we require.
And that's why, Mr. Chairman, I think it's very important that these comments get back to the ministry so they can also be provided to the applicant so he knows what further information they need to submit at whatever timing they may choose so that we can do a more thorough evaluation, you know, against the requirements of our subdivision.
Shall we move on to the Upper Island developments portion?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, this is a separate referral. It's the third one in the package. It's a very different kettle of fish. And if I'm understanding the Public Works Superintendent correctly, this kicks it into a bit of a different dimension in terms of the capacity of the current UBID water supply into the system. This is a potentially significant application. Remember, it's a rezoning application submitted by Upper Island Developments to the Comox Valley Regional District. My understanding in talking to the planner there is that the regional district, and we'll know better about this pretty soon once we start the conversion, is proposing to introduce the rezoning bylaw in the first quarter of next year, with a view to holding a public hearing, again, presumably in the first quarter of next year. So it's a rezoning application, less typical detail than you'll see in a subdivision application. It's an application for a 55-hectare parcel. It's shown in one of the figures on page 32 of your Appendix C. And under the current zoning, without a rezoning application, 23 parcels would be permitted, which my understanding, according to the engineer, would, if developed to the maximum density under current zoning, would potentially for 46 new houses, okay? And connecting to the UBIDs cannot be required under current zoning. However,
what? You blanked out what? I missed that, Gary. Sorry, you're skipping.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Connecting-
Under the current zones, minimum lot area and density regulations. So current zoning would provide for 23 parcels, which to the maximum density under current zoning could permit up to 46 new houses.
Yeah.
But under current zoning, connecting to the community water system isn't required. But this is an application to create a new zone and with the intention to connect each lot to UBID's community water system. So they'd be looking to connect each lot to the system. And under the requested rezoning, the intention is to connect each lot to the water system and up potentially to create up to 114 lots, okay? And to accommodate the proposal, an additional zone would be created. And if developed to the maximum density, 114 lots, that would enable up to 228 dwellings, our understanding is. So this is a substantial rezoning application. Again, in this particular case, there's a lot less detailed development criteria. So a lot more unanswered questions even than on the Union Bay Estates applications. So as Dan has said, you know, potentially significant implications on the water supply and delivery system. And I think that although I didn't ask the engineering consultant, because it's just a rezoning application, to provide detailed comments, because he clearly doesn't have enough information to do that. All of his comments with respect to the Union Bay Estates applications would be applicable in this particular case, in terms of a lot more information that's required. But this one's different. It's a rezoning application. Your comments would be submitted back to the regional district, and they would be provided as part of the public hearing process if this goes to a public hearing in the first quarter of next year, which I understand from their planner is the intention. So there'd be lots of opportunity for agency and public input on that. But again, I invite the comments of the Public Works Superintendent and the Fire Chief. Fire Chief submitted comments, which are generic to all three referrals, but any other comments from staff would be welcome.
As far as I'm concerned, with the Upper Island, it's just too many unknowns right now, Gary. And it obviously, until we see something further, there's really not a whole bunch. I mean, if we're looking at 228 dwellings, we're looking at twinning the DAF plant. We're looking at putting in the second reservoir. You would also be looking at some type of a booster station to require fire flows that would be required. So a huge undertaking. Basically, it would be a lot. It'd be a big jump.
And comments from trustees, thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, I think really, like Gary said, it's basically a rezoning at this time, and the development end of it, it's probably going to be in the future. And it is a huge undertaking because of the ground levels and everything else where this thing is going to be. So I think it's basically the rezoning that will be the only thing we'll be looking at the moment.
Could I, am I correct in my understanding that this, the Upper Islands 55-acre parcel, is it not at a higher elevation than the properties that we were discussing, the Union Bay? And that is a factor that adds to the potential cost?
That's right.
It's at the same elevation as our upper pressure zone right now. However, it falls below that pressure zone. A lot of the properties are downhill. So there will be a few at the top that are obviously at a lower pressure, but whatever it takes for them to get the water, they will be paying for.
So in other words, this booster station that you speak of to increase pressure would be at the cost of the developer.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so, but the addition of a second DAF train would not be at the cost of the developer. That would be funded through KEX or something like that.
I would
It should be.
that. I would think it would be under the developer if he wants to put 228 dwellings in.
So
You don't have
if
the
I-
capacity to do that.
Yeah. If I can just, I recall the decision by the board with relation to the water and infrastructure agreement that we had with Union Bay Estates, which was, and this came from trustee Elliott, but the entire board was in agreement, which was the principle being that that developers pay for any upsizing or any infrastructure improvements in order to service their lot. And if that includes a DAF plant, which basically any any development permit from this point on essentially triggers the need for a second DAF. That we as a board are clear in all fairness to developers in that expectation that those costs are borne by them, including the DAF plant, even though the DAF plant is referenced in that infrastructure agreement in relation to Union Bay Estates. I think it should be standard. It's a matter of whoever trips the trigger going over that number of households. I think this is really important.
Yep, that's a fair
Yeah.
statement.
Yeah, Susan is correct. That was the case with Union Bay Estates, and I have to agree with her on that 100%.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So I'm just wondering, how does this work? How does this work with our commitment? We've already signed agreements to supply water to the Union Bay Estates. How much water have we got? Is there no limit?
We have not signed an agreement.
Yeah, I don't
Sorry, the water agreement with Union Bay Estates or whatever they called themselves at the time, what was the build out? Was 3,000 houses or something?
That's people, not houses.
Yeah, no, as far as I'm,
let's let Dan
we
speak.
haven't signed any commitments to Union Bay Estates regarding water.
We don't have a water agreement with them?
Not at all, not that I'm aware of.
Yes, we do.
What?
How much?
We-
but
We
for
do
what-
have a water agreement with Union Bay Estates.
that we can supply water.
That's right.
And that
But-
ultimate build out is many, many homes. So how can we possibly serve with our current water license?
We
don't even
can't
have
with our
enough
current.
to-
So what happens with the Union Bay Estates is it's a phased approach. So when they get past their first phase, they have to go right back to the start of the drawing board again, look at the capacity of the lake, and go right from the start all over again.
That is correct.
Meaning we would have to look to solicit additional water licenses.
That could be, or raising the dam, or
At their expense.
at their, exactly, Ted, yeah.
But I still think Eve's question is a good one.
Chairman,
right?
in a way that
I'm confused. If you know all that, Danny, how could you not know we had a water agreement with them? I'm really confused.
I made it wrong. What I meant was we don't have an agreement saying we're giving them 79, 80 houses before we give it to anybody else.
No, okay.
They're in the same boat as everybody else. I mean, if we get 100 people show up and build 100 houses next week,
Yeah,
then we're done. We're at our limit, and from there on out, we either need another reservoir, we either need another DAF, we may need to raise the dam, but that's where we are.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
But is there an issue or a complexity with respect to managing two developers? And like, here's a question that's going through my head, right? Is it just whoever gets there first is going to trigger the DAF plant? So that doesn't that then say, well, I'm not going to trigger the DAF plant. So do we have to get some sort of three-way negotiation going to saying,
Yeah, I think that could be a possibility, Ian. I think with the Union Bay Estates, their first phase is 43 houses, which falls underneath our 100. I think they're probably trying to get those done as quickly as possible. But I think if another developer were to come in and they're asking for 37 houses or 114 parcels or 228 dwellings, that's going to trigger. Definitely.
I'd like to hear from Gary on his thoughts on how you manage two of these things going on at once.
Well, to a certain extent, the timing of these is a little bit out of your control to a certain extent. I'd make two big points through the transition process. And it's good that these came to our attention. That's why I thought it was important to get to the board. The 2 points that I think should be raised or considered by Union Bay and made to the region is that, gosh, if this is the type of applications, size and magnitude and complexity that are coming down the pipe at some point in time, maybe, maybe not, but let's assume they will. There's 2 big pieces of work that I think would need to be really relooked at. We need to do our homework in advance. One of them is on the subdivision bylaw that's been previously raised. I think it needs to have another look at. There's some points that were brought forward by the solicitor that needs to be, I think, incorporated into that bylaw. So I'd be focusing and bringing to the attention of the region the need to do that. And we could certainly start that process ourselves even before conversion to make sure that that's as tight and addresses all of the things that Dan has mentioned in regards to the requirements that would be put on the development community. The second point would be the CECs, and those haven't been, I think, adjusted since 2014. I think it's timely to start looking at those again. So you'd want to have them up to date and in place so that we're recouping the maximum amount of development revenue from these development applications if and when they come forward. And that's work I think that you're not going to do overnight. You're not going to complete before probably the conversion date, but it's certainly that, we'd be recommending to the region that work needs to be done.
Okay. And then I see a contradiction here. The CECs to recoup what? We haven't paid for anything because the developers are paying for everything. And number 2, I think we need to put in our comments to the province that we have capacity issues. We don't even know what our capacity is. Just getting more water licenses, is that going to solve it? Do we have the water to serve? How many lots can we serve? I know this is a big if and nobody seems to know exactly, and there's lots of difference of opinion here. So I haven't heard the water capacity brought up in all these discussions.
Well, CECs, my understanding, are like development cost charges, right? So you should be reviewing those every 5-6 years to make sure that they're reflective and that they're at a magnitude that's fair and reasonable and defensible. The issue of capacity, what I'm hearing from Dan is that and to correct me if I'm wrong, on the Union Bay Estates subdivision applications, on the face of it, there would be the current capacity within the supply and distribute subdivision applications. But with the potential development application for Upper Island developments, with that magnitude and size of lots, there's no way. There'd have to be significant upgrading done to the system.
Upgrading, or do we have to find out whether we have the water capacity?
Dan?
Currently, we're allowed to take 28 liters per second out of the lake. We're only using about 8. So I'm just trying to look through my notes, but one of my reports not too long ago was basically how much we go through per year compared to how much we are allowed to take, and it's just a drop in the bucket. So our capacity is huge. Whether now our treatment plant can only produce 14 liters per second. Yeah. So if we go over the top of that, then obviously we need new treatment. But as far as capacity at the lake, we're using, I'm just trying to find it now, but it wasn't I think it was about 2 meetings ago that we discussed this, Marie. And we have a large capacity of water at the lake.
Yeah, and when I use the word capacity, I'm not talking about the amount of water at the lake. I'm talking about the guts of the system.
The guts of the system can handle 14 liters per second. Currently, we're running at about 8. And at the highest point of the summer, we can get to 12, but that is only for about an 8-hour period.
Okay.
So I think we should clarify the CECs. They would cover from the main line to the meter. That's what that covers. The developer doesn't cover that. Correct, Danny?
The CECs are paid when the homeowner connects to the water system.
That's right.
Correct.
They're like development cost charges.
Yeah.
So I think, may I say something?
Yes,
I think what the concern that Eve has raised, and I share her concern, is, and when we use the word capacity, it is being interchanged with capacity of the water treatment plant as per our license and the structure of the DAF plant versus how much water Langley Lake holds.
Correct.
And that question is an unknown. And the water report written by Jim Madison, which was Safe, Clean and Clear Water, has made it very clear that we have not had a full hydrological study done of Langley Lake. We don't really know what the capacity of that lake is.
We've had a
And that is-
bathymetrical study done of the lake.
That was done a very long time ago, Danny. Certainly 20 years ago. So
Not 20 years ago, no. I have it.
if you're talking about 2008, that,
2009, maybe.
yeah, so that is not a full, that was not a full assessment. And that has been raised in the Clean and Clear Water report as something needing to be done. And I think that's what Eve is referring to, is that before we pass a subdivision, don't we need to know that in fact we could, let's say they fulfill all of the obligations, upgrade the infrastructure.
Yes.
And I would agree with Eve's concern that yes, we
Yes.
need a full hydrological assessment of Langley Lake. That's to
That-
protect
that
our
is-
interest.
And that is correct. And the developer will pay for that assessment.
The developer will pay for his own assessment. I'd like to,
It's
an assessment, I guess we're agreeing, Danny, that an assessment is
Yes.
required. Okay,
definitely.
thank you.
Yes.
So-
Yes.
but my question is, are we diving a little deep here, or are we, do we need to bring this up to say, what is it that we need to communicate back at this early stage
Very early stage.
of this? And I'd look to our interim administrator to guide us in what we need to communicate back. I'm feeling like asking for a hydrological study at this point in time might be too
No.
detailed, but I'd love to hear that.
I think that for the first two referrals from Union Bay Estates, I think they should largely, the comments that are sent back should be substantively those from Mr. Dahl, which are actually more questions and requests for further information, because those are subdivision applications, basically making the point that we would need that information to provide a more thorough analysis of what would be required from the developer if, at the building permit stage post subdivision. In the case of this particular application, a rezoning, a lot less information and detail that's been provided. What I'm hearing, and again, I stand to be corrected, is that this is the magnitude, the scope, the size of this application is basically beyond, and I don't want to use the word capacity, it's beyond the capability of the current system to accommodate those magnitude of connections, and that pretty substantial upgrades would be required to the system in order to accommodate that application of up to 114 dwellings. So we basically, I would think you'd focus your comments on that, and I do agree with Dan that depending on your subdivision bylaw, what that says, and most, if not all of these requirements, upgrading requirements to the system would be paid for by the developer through contributions, your development cost charge contributions, CECs, but also, you know, part of your fees for filing the application.
So that's kind of the level at which we should be speaking back at this, is saying, thank you for your application. It's significant. It will exceed the capabilities of our current water system, so further negotiations are required.
Dan, have I said that basically correct in regards to Upper Island developments?
You got it. Yes.
Okay, I think, Mr. Chairman, you keep it fairly general at this stage.
Okay. And trustees, how are we feeling about this?
I think it's pretty well been said what needs to be done, and we have to go ahead and do it. For the safety of the people of Union Bay, as well as the people that are already on the system, so that they know that their system is not going to be overtaxed in the future without safeguards.
Good comment.
And one final point, Mr. Chairman, keep in mind that if this does go to public hearing, and I don't know what the practice has been in the past, but if it goes to public hearing, the UBID would have the opportunity to make representation at the public hearing directly to the regional board when those bylaws are presented.
Eve, Susanna, anything further?
No, I like the idea of including all the comments made here, as well as the engineer and Gary's comments and your summary, Ian.
So I guess, Gary has made some recommendations at the back of his report. Gary, I presume there's probably a little bit more having come out of this meeting that you might use to finalize your reports, or are you comfortable with them the way they are and sending them as they are?
No, I think, Mr. Chairman, I'm pretty comfortable. I've heard the comments. I think I understand. I may have a further conversation with Dan so that I can put a little bit of a finer point on some of his comments with respect to the type of upgrades that would be required potentially to the system, particularly for the third referral. But I think I've got enough to go on at this stage.
Do we require a motion to approve the submission of this report, or do we just need a motion to adopt your report? What do you think we need?
I think just a motion essentially to receive the report and instruct the staff to provide the comments and questions from our engineering consultant and from staff to provide those comments to the various agencies is sufficient. And I'll draft a letter and I can run it by you, Mr. Chairman, beforehand.
Okay.
So moved.
Janice, do you have that written down? I think that was a yes. So moved. All in favor of the motion as described by Interim Administrator Nason?
I'm in favor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that good piece of work, Gary.
Yeah.
Final item on the agenda. This one should go reasonably quickly, and then we'll move to landowner questions if there are any. So the motion is that the board agrees to continue providing 24/7 on-call support for water treatment and distribution at the increased cost provided for in the ratified collective agreement. I have a second. Second from Trustee Haroldson. Any discussion, comment? And my only comment is we've adjusted the costs in the budget to be more in line with the average costs of all employees that would be involved. So I'm very happy with that. So if there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Yes.
That's unanimous approval. And that would be the end of the formal part of the agenda. If there are any questions, Janice, if you can unmute the landowners to see if there are any questions that they want to propose, that would be great. And I will call by name. I believe there's only two on the call, but if I start, I'm just going to go across my line. And the first one I come across is Mary Reynolds. Mary, just want to approach directly, see if you have any questions you would like to ask.
Yes, Trustee Harrelson stated when we were talking about water pressure, he said in the 2017 water agreement, the developer would pay for this second DAF plant, which I agree with. But could you ask him to explain? I'm sure that he said that the developer would pay for another water tower. And I've looked, I have the agreement right in front of me, and I don't see anything relating to another water tower. It just mentions the second DAF plant.
I'll turn that question, if everybody heard what it was, is the second water tower actually included in the water and infrastructure agreement? So I don't know if Trustee Harrelson, Trustee Calger.
Not to my
Superintendent.
recollection. The DAF plant is named specifically, but I, not to my recollection. I don't have it right in front of me. I think
Dan,
Mary's.
Dan, do you have any other information on that?
I don't have that agreement in front of me, but yeah, I don't have a comment on that
Ted?
without looking at the agreement.
Yeah. Ted, any thoughts, or is just?
Well, the only thoughts I have is that if there's going to be an increase in water volume, it's not just only the DAF plant that's required. It's also another water storage facility because of the firefighting purposes and everything at the same time.
So I understand that the need for, sorry, Mary.
There's nothing that says that the developer is going to pay for another water reservoir. That's what I'm asking. Ted said specifically that the developer would pay for the DAF plant and another storage facility, and that's wrong. It's incorrect.
Ted, any comment on that? Or just
Only comment I can make on it is that if there is an increase, that means there has to be an increase in storage as well.
so are you
It
aware
doesn't
that
go without the other.
Yeah. Okay, but do you know if the agreement actually says, what Mary's saying is she's got the agreement in front of her and there isn't a specification
if
tower, she
Mary's-
just asked me to clarify.
I have to say, if Mary has it in front of her and it's not in there, well, then it's not in there. But my understanding would be that any increase in development that requires another DAF plant requires water storage increase. So again, that's a fine point.
Mary, are you okay with that answer?
I'm okay. I'll post it on my blog tonight because the section that I'm reading, and it's just wrong to say that. It's just not in the agreement. And it doesn't, if it's not written down, it doesn't mean anything. It has to be in the agreement. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, for your comment. I appreciate it.
Paul Allard, any questions? That sounds like a no. Anybody else? Any further questions, Mary, or?
No, I'm good. Thank you. It's been a good meeting. Interesting.
All right, so that sounds like we've come to the end of the public questions section. So I guess it's time for adjournment. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to make that.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
4 hands in the air. Thank you, everybody. Great meeting. Thank you to the team for showing up
Yeah.
and supporting us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thanks to all the staff.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, everybody.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Yeah. Happy
Have a good day.
solstice.
Happy solstice.